Hello, welcome back to Going Walkabout. Today's episode is, let's say, tidying up some loose ends. I have some first testing feedback and I'll go into that. But first, I'm going to change the app icon because in dark mode, I don't like that white background. So I'm going to offer an alternative icon. Let's first look at the icon as it is right now and how I can change the icon in the app. Here we see the simulator with the app icon the way we want to have it. Now if we start the app, we see the usual app. I can go to my settings and here I created a nice new, let's say, setting application where I can choose an alternative icon. I have standard, I have a little bit darker, and I have really dark where it is black. So let's choose an icon and let's see what's happened. If I click it, we'll see you change the icon, okay, and of course my selected icon is changed. So let's look how this looks now on my springboard, and we have a nice dark background icon. What is in my opinion a lot nicer on dark mode. Unfortunately, Apple doesn't offer this functionality out of the box by creating two sets of icons and then in dark and light mode it will automatically pick the correct one. So I had to do it this way. And of course there's a little bit of user preference that maybe people do like the white background in dark mode. Now let's look how I actually built this. It all started here with a let's say a table view where I show the different icons. So from the settings I have a little bit of icon info, I have a table view controller where I set the three icons I have, going to images where I will go into, it is loading, it will get from my user defaults what is the default icon because I need to remember that, and then it shows the icons, we set the table. Now here if it is the selected icon we set a check mark. We need to, let's say, put a border around the icon so it looks a little bit nicer on the background of the table view controller. So when it's a light icon, I set a light gray background and otherwise a dark gray border. I mean, of course, we do a little bit of rounding and it goes. Now, and once it gets selected, and this is actually where it all happens, is that if the icon is not the selected icon, because it's already selected, we check if the application supports alternative icons. If that is the case, we figure out what is the ID, and if you look carefully here, it's like either we have a light, a dark, or a darker, and this is important because we'll come back to that. Now, if the ID is light, we set it to nil, because then we revert back to the default app icon, and this set alternative icon name, actually if you pass in nil, will go back to the default. So we set either here dark or darker because those are the IDs. Well, if it doesn't work, we'll print an error message, and if it is alright, then we set the user default to the correct icon so that in the later stage we can set the checkbox again. Now, before you can actually all do this, we need to do some things. So first I had to get into my assets and create icons for the user interface. So this is the really dark one, a little bit darker one, and the light one. Those are the icons that are shown in the table view controller as I just showed you. And that is just how you want to make your user interface for selecting the correct icon. It doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you offer a way to select an icon. Now the real stuff actually happens here in my resources. I have defined icons, images. So the darker one in the 2 and 3 size, and also the darkest one 2 and 3 sizes, because this is the icon that is actually set as your icon on your home page of your phone. And the way that is done is through the p-info list. So in the p-info list you have to define icons. It's not very readable, so let me open it as a source code. It's a little bit better readable. We say you define the key with your bundle icons, with alternative icons, and then you have the key dark. Remember that we set that key dark and darker, and this is linked to a string, and this is the name of the icon as I've defined here, and this is the darker, that's the other one icon. Now, and if you want to make it work on an iPad, what is also important, you also have to define it here for an iPad to get that done. And the rest is the same, and this way you can change your icon, and of course the app remembers that, etc., And in my opinion, you can offer a lot nicer experience in dark mode. So I'm really happy with my really dark icon, and maybe you are too, and you're inspired to do the same in your application. And that is the main feature of this video. For the rest, I'm just cleaning up some stuff. So let's go and see what I had to do based on some feedback I had. First, I had to fix the way I deal with Crashlytics, because you might remember from the previous episode that I had to take a shortcut and go back a few versions in order to make it work. But I really wanted to solve this properly, so that's what I did here. And in order to do that, I created, as you can see here, now a Go and Walkabout production target and a test target. So it's better visible here. If we go here, we see two targets. Now they're exactly the same. They also point to the same versions, the same plist, etc. The only difference is that in my config folder, I have a folder for production and a folder for test, and each has their own Google Service info plist, because that was the problem, because the analytics plus also Crashlytics, they want to have the default name, and now it has the default name, because this service icon is only linked to the production target, and this one is only linked to the test target. So once you start running a target, it will automatically pick up the right one. Now, I also did a little bit of app configuration for my test environment and my production environment, and now it is completely separated. So I run a target, it will set the correct Google info plist, and it will set the correct connection to my backend, etc. And it is very easy to switch. It was a little bit of work to set it up, but at least now it's done, and my Crashlytics is running on the latest version, and I don't need to do any workarounds anymore. Now, another thing that I had to do is I implemented my in-app purchases, but I actually made a mistake. And the mistake was that my store was actually created in my view controller. But if for some reason the purchase didn't get through, the listener for the result of the purchase would, let's say, get killed, and it wouldn't be able to get those notifications anymore. So in order to do that, I had to change it a little bit, that in my app delegate, if I can find it here somewhere, I actually now create my store, and that means I have created my store, and in my store is my listener for the app purchases, and I don't have that problem anymore. So if something goes wrong and your view controller gets out of scope and doesn't exist anymore, is released from memory, you can still listen for purchase events and send notifications where required. Was just because I found an article from Apple about a recommended way to implement that, and noticed I didn't do it the correct way, so I fixed that. It's just a little thing. Now, one of the things that users were reporting back, and let's go to the simulator again and start the app, and let's go to a trip, that if they wanted to go and create a post, they couldn't start typing here immediately while it was fetching the location. Now here it's on the simulator, location fetching is fast, but on a device that takes a few seconds, and of course you already want to start typing there. Now the problem was here that this works fine, but on iOS 13 this, let's say, edit box here disappeared under the header here. So I had to fine-tune that a little bit in my storyboard so that it's always visible. Now you can start typing your story while it's fetching the location, and this will appear when it is done. So that was also a little fix that was necessary to do. Another fix, and that was, you could already see it a little bit, but I had some users complaining that if they had images with a light header, it was very hard to see the plus button and the trips here. That was also something I noticed myself. So your trip header image was kind of influencing the usability. But I still wanted to have a full image. So of course I can put in a header bar with the color and the correct contrast, but I didn't like that because it didn't look the way I want. So what I did now, I put a little bit of vignetting on this image, so that it's a little bit darker here and it looks a little bit better. So let's see if we can run this same thing without the vignetting, because then you can see the difference what I actually did. And I have to look a little bit where I did that. It is in my media, it's in my image view and media cache, and here you see we do the vignetting. What is the easiest way to do that? That I do the old way. I set the image and I ignore all this. Now it should work. Let's stop the simulator and start it. Now it takes a little bit time to build, so let's wait patiently. Maybe I should put in a little bit of background music while we're waiting for the app to build and the simulator to show up. Just be patient. Okay, let's check out the simulator, and here we see it running, and you see the visibility is not very good. So the vignetting works, and of course it's still depending on the quality of your image, but I'm happy with this, and this is the way it's going to stay for now to avoid, let's say, not having this button very well visible. So this was a solution to fix that problem. But of course, it's something that's unavoidable when you have, let's say, user-generated content here. Another thing that was confusing for some people, that here in the settings I have a number of photos that is in the cache. And I had users reporting that, you know, I started the app, I haven't uploaded a single photo yet, and it's still showing a count. And yes, that's the total number of photos in the cache, because if you visit a trip from someone else or a public trip, it will cache the photos. But it was confusing people, so I have removed this in the future builds. You don't see this number anymore because it doesn't have any added value. You want to know which photos are still pending in your cache, and you of course want to know how much memory is used so that you can flush it if you're running short of storage. Yeah, those are the main things that I've been fixing so far, and I will push out a new build for testing. The testing will still continue, but the goal is that in the next episode we can finally say it's done and that it can go to the App Store. So I hope you liked this video again. Please like and subscribe, it's appreciated. If you didn't like the video, subscribe anyway, because the next one might be better for you as well. I'll thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.